Veterans Battalion.
What is up, everybody? Veterans Battalion here. We are in our new location, the War Room, and we got a very special guest for you guys. Without further ado, let's just introduce him right now, right?
Yeah, this guy has impacted so many lives, and I've never met anyone who's cared more about vets. And man, he's just an amazing guy. Without further ado, Joe Sapien.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Yes.
Wait, before we hold on. Do it, Colt.
Oh, we got Colt's intro.
Oh, I got to do it. I got to do my
Veterans Battalion intro.
One battalion, one company, one team, one fight.
All right. So those of you that, if this is your first time listening, Veterans Battalion was created by 4 Marines that really just found a need to provide greatness after service, like just overcoming all the challenges that you face when you exit active service. When you're on active duty, you always have the individuals looking out for you, your platoon sergeants, your first sergeants, your gunnies, and you kind of lose that. And in terms of everything from getting your benefits with the Veterans Administration to providing, just guidance, success to do the things that you want to do after service, there's a lot of stuff lacking, right?
And I hope you guys listen to that, because 4 Marines figured out how to do a podcast, so you guys got no excuses.
Hey, we're grunts too. Hey, we don't have no com Marines, no intel.
Y'all got
Marines.
no excuses.
Adam here was an ASVAB waiver.
Hey, I was too. Don't tell anybody.
Hey, that shit was hard, man. Man. No, he's only fucking around. I only failed it once.
Hey, man, without further ado, we obviously had a few questions for Joe, and I'm pretty sure he might have some things for us. Yeah. But, I think that the biggest thing right now, and I think we started talking about it earlier, was the burn pits.
Yeah.
I know that's a big topic right now.
But before we get into that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been, where you working at?
Yeah, so I'm Joe Sapien. I was born in Modesto, California. Moved out here in Los Angeles after 2008 when everything went to hell for everybody. And sleeping on my brother's couch. And eventually I got a job working with LA County doing veterans disability benefits. And I guess before that I was in Modesto working at a veterans homeless shelter off of Paradise Road with Marvis Hood and Nathan Johnson. And they kind of taught me basic ideas of benefits. And when you started working with the homeless, you started realizing that a lot of things that you assume aren't really true. So sometimes a lot of guys just happen to hit bad luck. They're not drug addicts or bad people. It's just you lose your job or somebody in your family dies, and all of a sudden you're stuck in this moment. And once you started seeing that, you started to see that there was some kind of disconnect, that it wasn't just bad guys who chose to be homeless or something like that. And I started learning benefits and moved down here and found out that it was a real job. I really didn't know it was a job. I thought it was just we were supposed to take care of each other,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a job, so I figured, if you're like being a little bit of a smart ass, I figured if you're going to be the next homeless vet, you better start learning. And so I started working with homeless vets because they've been on the streets longer than me or anything else, and they started showing me benefits about stand downs and little things like that. And so by the time I moved to LA, I had a basic understanding of benefits, and that's what got me into the job with the LA County. But it was a real blessing, like a unknown blessing.
And when was that? What year was that you started doing that?
I started working with the homeless vets in Modesto in 2004. And then I moved out here in 2008. And then I got the job with the county in 2009, 2010. Yeah, and then I've been at Sepulveda.
So you've been doing it quite some time.
Yeah. So
this guy, he is the living legend as far as just helping veterans, with the whole process, just making it a little bit more seamless and
trying to make it easier, because you realize, like, if you've ever been in that position where it feels like the world doesn't really care or nobody really gets it, then you understand where these guys are coming from. And if you can make it this much easier, then it's got to make the world a little bit better,
Definitely.
And so almost like anything else you do in life, you're like, well, this is how far I've gotten. This is what I know. I could show you this, and then hopefully they could learn something off of it and bring back something they learned.
And you know what the cool thing about you is every time I talk to you, run into you at the VA in Sepulveda, you're always, when I tell you, hey, I referred this guy over to you, you're like, oh, thank you. Like you actually love it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because you actually, because you're like one of those rumors, right? Like,
yeah.
how do I get this benefit? How do I truly get what I'm supposed to get? You got to talk to Joe. And that's really what it's come down to is everyone says, go talk to Joe. I have a list of about 12 guys here that I need to give them your schedule because I only trust them with you.
Right.
Same here.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, it's kind of mind blowing, because it's like, regardless of what branch or anything, like we all said we'd take care of the dude to the left and right of us.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we get out and then you'll see other people that are more selfish about themselves, and get their benefits, but they're not telling anybody anything. And I don't see how in the hell you do that. Like, I don't care if you're a millionaire. Like, if you serve, there's a good shot you deserve something and you're not getting it.
Absolutely.
And so the easiest way we take care of each other now that we're out is by doing this disability and showing what happens.
Definitely. And that's what is awesome. And that's what we stand for is our purpose to help our brothers and sisters.
Right.
To let them know, hey, you guys aren't in this alone. We got your back. We got your six.
And we're not going to be that next generation just to follow in line with the next BS, Yeah. I think the biggest thing of our generation is we talk to each other and say, man, get off your ass and go get this. Where a lot of the older generations, they could have been your neighbor and they wouldn't tell you. Like, my uncle was a Korean War vet. Didn't know he was service connected, never told me nothing until I moved down here and became a service officer. Go back and I'm like, hey man, I could help you out. And he's like, oh, I'm 100%. And you're like, dick, I was homeless.
Dude, help a brother out.
Yeah, say something. Real. And I don't blame him. I think it was just the way he was raised in that generation, But I think our generation's different where we say, hey, get off your ass and go do something.
Yeah. I think maybe with that, it's like that whole mindset. Hey, you know what? No one showed me how to do this. I busted my ass and I figured it out myself. So you know what? You're going to fucking do the same thing yourself. And that's the wrong mindset.
Yeah, I don't dig that. Yeah. I think if it's easy, make it easy, because if you've already been down that road, you could tell somebody about it. So it's like, if I've been down that road, why are you going to let somebody go blind? Like, just tell them, hey, this is what they're looking for. This is what they want. And they'll have better odds. I'm not saying you'll be successful. I'm saying you'll have better odds.
Definitely.
And that's what I'm always, and that's what I'm about is like potential and like your opportunity. So if you have potential and opportunity, damn well as vets, we could pretty much do anything we want.
Damn straight.
Absolutely. So what mistakes are you seeing when guys come in? Are they, because I know that you help out guys and gals that, had a previous officer who didn't do the claim properly, who, you're actually usually looking at their, kind of, let's say like a award letter, right? Where it's explaining why you didn't get what you're supposed to get.
Right.
So what would you say like the common mistake is for most people?
I think the most common thing is we assume because we're honorable, because we got good conduct medals, because we're deployed, that your word has some kind of value to the VA, and it doesn't,
Good point.
And so it's all about proof. And the funny thing about the VA, especially the longer you do this, it's not about the truth. You could totally have been injured, but if you can't prove it, you're still a liar,
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people all the time, when it comes to VA, it's not about the truth. It's about the proof. And so long as you have records of showing this and you have records of showing that you were in this position and in this thing, then you have good odds. But if you just say, hey, I fell off my 5-ton and hurt my back, they ain't going to care.
No record, no BAS record.
Which is why if you're active duty, make sure to keep all of your records.
Yes, absolutely.
And make sure to go and say something about what's going on. And don't just suck it up, devil dog kind of shit.
Right, because that will screw you. The first thing you do when you get out and you sign up for the VA, they say, what? You never bitched about it? And you're like, what the hell, dude? I was infantry for 15 years.
They didn't want to be that sick bay warrior.
Right.
It's really what it comes down to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And same thing with the Guard and the Reserve. Like the major thing those guys want to think about is line of duty orders or the LODs.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have an LOD, you're pretty much a liar.
What's the LOD?
Line of duty. So, like, say you get injured during training or, your little deployment or whatever.
Got it.
Like, say that you had to go to Georgia for a month or something, but you hurt your ankle, you hurt your knee, whatever. If you don't have a line of duty, it didn't happen. And then because you're guard or reserve, they'll say, well, it wasn't active. So then you're going to have to fight that too. And so they do pick on guard and reserve a little bit more than.
And I know it's kind of difficult to get it's not difficult, but it's a little bit challenging sometimes to get to sick bay, like when you're actually in the military. This is for all the active duty guys out there. So if you can't get to sick bay, is there anything new that you've heard of that the corpsmen are doing? Because I know the corpsmen get to see you a lot more. Can they make notes and then
Absolutely. They could absolutely make notes. It doesn't matter how it gets there as long as it's in your record, you're gold. The flip side, too, especially if guys are active right now listening to this, a big thing a lot of vets don't know about is that you have a year from your ETS date to get anything you didn't bitch about in your record. So if you got out today...
That's huge.
About that.
Yeah, of course, because we never figured it out till 4 or 5 years later,
So that's 1 year from the time...
From the ETS date,
after their ETS?
Yeah, so say I got out today, I have till, January 2020 to bitch about anything, asthma, my knees, sleep apnea, whatever. And now they'll consider that as due to service.
Now, once you're out, though, who do you bitch to?
VA, your doctor. But you want to make sure you have those records because usually those outside doctors, after 10 years, they destroy records.
Yeah.
So even though you bitched about your back within that year, now that you're 50 years old and you're like, well, I remember talking to him, that's gone.
Yeah. Damn. So those of you that are listening, that's huge.
It's super
that is huge because
that's
that's one of the things. And I know I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. And I know you're guilty of it too. All of you guys, when you're in service, you don't want to be looked at like the sick bay warrior that goes to freaking BAS to bitch about this and bitch about that. So you just suck it the fuck up.
But a lot of times too, though, when you're younger, you hear a pop or, a little, it doesn't, you recover
and you
instantly.
don't care. And that's what I tell guys all the time.
And then you hit you later.
Yeah, because when you're 20 years old and it's Friday, F all this, I'm going to go party.
Yeah.
And so you don't think about it till you're older and you're like, oh shit, I did hurt my back.
I don't even think I went to the VA for anything till after 2 years, 2.5 years, Yeah. And they always start with the lower percentage too, right? They give you 10%.
Oh, yeah.
Fight for more and you got to keep fighting. And it's
it's a safe bet. Yeah. Because
right.
I always joke about how many guys you think never got a single thing from the VA and how many guys got something now and they have no idea they're getting lowballed.
So Joe, how do you feel about guys? A lot of times guys are very prideful.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I know my back hurts, but I don't need to do this.
Yeah, leave it for the other guy.
Leave it for the other guy.
How many times you heard that, Joe?
Yeah, that is the biggest misconception. So we all say that no matter who you are, what your background is. I know a guy that works for Sepulveda VA with the Bronze Star, and he says the same damn thing. Give it to somebody who deserves it. I'm like, you're the reason I have a job. But in his head, he's like, I got a job. My kids graduated high school and college. My house is paid off. I don't need this BS. And that's how we all think. But the reality is we don't know who that random guy is. We don't know, give it to the guy who deserves it. We don't know who that is. But the biggest thing is if you do file, that's the easiest way to take care of each other. Because I tell our generation, if it wasn't for the Vietnam vets, we would be absolutely screwed. We wouldn't have nothing. But because they kept fighting and pushing for what was right, we got the better end of it. And that's why you see the caregiver thing for us and not your grandpa or your uncle.
It's bullshit, though.
Oh, 100%.
But didn't they just come up with something that's going to...
Yeah, in 2 years. Yeah. And then that's only going to be specific dates, too.
Really?
Yeah. It's not going to be open to everybody. It's only going to go so far back.
So is there any sort of a budget? Let me ask you this, that you know of. So for the guys that are saying, oh, leave it to the other guy. He needs it more than I do.
It's already
I'm
set.
missing my leg, but don't worry about me.
Yeah, it's already set to the side. So whether you take it or not, it's already there.
That's
so big.
Perfect.
But I like it, like how he's saying it is. It's almost like your duty. It's our duty because you're paying to file because you're paying it forward,
or else that money gets dished somewhere else.
Yeah, right? You're looking out for the next generation.
Right, your kids, your grandkids,
definitely.
Because imagine you're infantry and nobody in the infantry ever bitched about hearing loss, and so all of a sudden this one dude pops up and goes, "I got hearing loss from being in the infantry." You're an effing liar.
Yeah.
But because so many infantry guys come out and say, "I got hearing loss," it's kind of obvious. Go, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with Agent Orange, same thing with depleted uranium. If no one bitches, then there's not a problem.
And now the burn pits.
Yeah. So you see how hard that is right now.
So do you think that everyone should register for the burn pit registry?
Oh yeah.
Is that something they should do when they get out?
Yeah, and do it now if you haven't. Like the major thing is you want to be a part of the registry, almost like the Agent Orange thing. So as the years go by, they could say the guys over here most likely get these issues. The guys over here most likely get these issues. So they have a kind of a concept of what the hell's going on instead of just saying, if you're in Vietnam, you know? Like that doesn't mean nothing. You got to try to figure shit out. It. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so that's part of the burn pit registry is trying to figure out dudes' ages, units they were with, how long were they there, all that little stuff to try to figure something out.
What's crazy is there's so much money involved, and no one has the slightest idea where all the information is. It feels like there's like a serious like disconnect with that, and I have no idea where that's coming from.
Well,
it's
even
like, oh, you're out, okay.
Even my business,
like no one keeps any record of anything.
In our business, we primarily help out vets, and before anything, I'm like, "What's your rating?" Like, what is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you shitting me again?
Yeah. Are you service connected? Yeah. Honorable.
Yeah.
And again, I think it really comes down to like the budget, I think it's almost meant to be challenging, difficult, confusing, because that translates to veterans just saying, you know what, fuck it. I don't need it.
E-benefits.
I agree.
It saves money. It saves the VA money.
It says, it was funny because on e-benefits, it says, make an appointment with your doctor. So I said, make an appointment. I didn't got shit. Never responded back to me.
The worst thing now is because I hand deliver all my claims, right? Yeah. So in case anything ever happens, I could tell you I gave this to this guy instead of just saying I put it in the mailbox,
Wow.
Because that's not an answer to me. And especially if you're going to piss some dude off, at least give him an answer. And at least if you come cussing me out, I got some dude I could cuss out,
Yeah.
And so I hand deliver things. And even when I hand deliver it directly to a regional office, I'll get guys calling me saying, I don't see my claim on e-benefits. And then I say, well, call them and ask. And so they'll call and ask and they'll say, oh yeah, it's there. We got it. And, but if you talk to e-benefits, they say, we update things now. It's instant.
It's bullshit.
And you're like, the shit it is. And if it is, like, nobody could find it.
Yeah.
So you're like, what the hell? And so I hate e-benefits for myself personally. Some guys are pretty good at it. And if you're good at it, cool. But I hate it.
Yeah. So we're on this topic of benefits now.
Yeah.
And if we take a step back, when you first started talking, just told us about your experience with, the homeless, seeing the homeless veterans. How do you feel that this system right now, and this process of getting benefits translates to, that?
And trying to help.
Trying to help homeless veterans and prevent that.
Yeah, I think it gets harder because in, say, like 2011, 12, claims were taking a long time, right? They were taking well over a year and a half to hear yes or no on a basic thing like hearing loss. And people started complaining, so then the VA started speeding up. But when they started speeding up, they would deny the hell out of people. And so now there's not a backlog in the claim process, there's a backlog in the appeals process. And the problem with that is
still today.
Oh, hell yeah. And that's where you hear the ramp program and all this BS, because they'll tell you, do you want us to move faster? You're like, every time you move fast, you F up. They're like, how about you take your time and do the shit right?
Yeah.
But I hate ramp. But I think the problem is they'll send you to an outside doctor, like QTC, MSLA, and it really feels like 9 times out of 10, these guys are not vets. They don't know military history for nothing. And they're not looking in your military records really to try to get an idea of how this could have happened. They just sit down and bullshit with you and go, yeah, I don't believe that. And they'll deny you. And to me, it's like, if you're going to send a guy to a random ass outside doctor, have him some kind of understanding of what the hell you did.
Yeah.
Because especially say Vietnam vets who were cooks, right? You're deployed. You were in Vietnam. And they just look at you and go, well, you're a cook. What did you do? You're like, asshole, my base got overran and bombed all the damn time. But all they see is cook.
Yeah.
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 And that's where there's this massive disconnect of trying to understand
what this problem.
Yeah.
Huge.
And these dudes don't get it.
Because they think they know just based off of something like that, their job.
Right. And that's so completely wrong. Or it's hard for them to understand what the hell you're saying. So then they say, well, that doesn't feel like that could happen, and they'll deny you. But if you talk to guys who are like, say, like mechanics for airplanes or something like that, and you talk to them, how many of those dudes have skin issues? How many of those dudes have bad joints in their elbows and knees and back and everything?
Yeah.
What's crazy is just on that same topic, there's one of actually our clients that we had helped, former Marine, and he wasn't in a combat arms position. He wasn't an infantryman or a amphibious assault vehicle crewman, anything like that. He worked in the aviation sector. However, when we actually ended up finding out that we were part of the same deployment in Afghanistan in 2011, and his job was receiving the medevac birds when they came back in on the main base, Dwyer. And so he saw everything from, extremely wounded Marines to Marines that were killed in action.
Right. And
talk about the things that you go through and the things that you see and the amount of PTSD that creates just from your experiences it's crazy. It's something that you can never unsee. You'll never forget
that won't go away.
And he wasn't a combat arms Marine.
No, and I always tell people, like, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do. Is like the moment you put on that uniform, your life is going to change left or right. Whether it's good or bad or anywhere in between, one guarantee is your life's going to change.
Yeah, 100%.
And you don't know necessarily how it's going to be, because me and you could be in the same foxhole and looking at the same shit, and you go, damn, that was close. I'm going to go get a snack. And I'm just sitting there like, fuck this, I want to go home. And so it could be the same thing, but the way we process stress and handle it may be absolutely different.
Yeah, 100%. Totally. We have some stories about that. Well, we won't drop any names, but I remember like our first combat experience we were going through Nasiriyah, and this is during the invasion.
Yeah.
And we remember seeing he was a corporal at the time, and he was someone that everyone kind of looked up to, respected, carried himself very well. But when we were in the shit, this dude was literally on the street in the fetal position, not looking downrange with his rifle, like he didn't know what to fucking do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you just described. Individuals just
but you don't know how somebody's going to act until
real happens. Like, because we could all watch TV and be like, dude, I'll fuck that guy up.
Yeah, and then the guy comes up to you.
Yeah, and then
you shit your pants.
Yeah, and so like you could all play Monday morning quarterback, but you never really know how you react until you're in those situations, and you got to be in a few to try to have a real understanding of this is how I act.
Absolutely,
That's
why even in like for you doing jiu-jitsu, you just never know the nicest, smallest guy could whoop the crap out of you.
They're usually the nice ones, dude.
And those are the ones. But then you see these guys are like puffing up their chest. And like, my son is so, he's so influenced. He's like, wow, that guy looks tough. I said, I'm like, don't judge it. There's always a story behind it.
Yeah, and me and my cousin, we always call that beach muscles.
Beach muscles.
So like you try to look hard.
Just for legs.
Like you try to look hard and stuff, like, don't mess with me. But then like out of nowhere, like you pop that dude once in the nose and he doesn't know what to do.
Right. 100%.
And like, yeah, but those little dudes, nah. They'll whoop your ass.
Absolutely.
Like cannonballs.
Yeah. Ultimately what it really means for all you guys listening, if you have things that you're going through, things that you're dealing with, physical problems, your mindset, just don't be the individual to just suck it the fuck up. You need to get it taken care of. Look out for not only yourself, but like you had heard, the generations to come.
Because when you're helping yourself, you're also helping out other Marines, other Army guys.
Massive.
Any service member.
And that's what I say. It's really not about us, because the VA care less of me and you fall over right now.
Because what better way to learn the benefit system than doing it yourself?
Absolutely.
Because it took me 10 years.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got you is when my life changed and I was able to get everything that I wanted to get.
And that's one thing I've always done, even though I'm like a service officer and I file claims. When I file my own claim, it goes in the stack with everybody else's. I don't hit up anybody and go like, hey, can you move my shit faster? Because then you don't understand it.
100%.
You know, it sits there and you figure it out. But if you've never been through it, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really believe it's put your feet in the fire and run with it. And the flip side for like what you're saying with the guys who like haven't filed or you're kind of on the fence, the more and more you start talking to other vets, regardless of how old they are, what branch they're in, what service, what era, whatever, you see there's massive similarities across the board.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're bullshitting with the 80-year-old or the guy that just got out, like we could all laugh about the same shit. And so, you know, there's commonalities here. And so no matter how crazy or weird you might think you're thinking or whatever the hell you believe, there's a million other dudes that are laughing. That are laughing and saying,
like,
yeah,
I was there stirring some burning shit with some diesel fuel.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like,
I thought that was barbecue, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I swear to God,
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke too.
Like, I seriously, like, I was on a, I was pulling guard, right? Then all of a sudden you just see like the black smoke coming up, like almost like remember back in the day you would see Burger King with the smoke in it. And you're like, oh shit, barbecue day. You know, and you're like, damn. And we go up there and there's like your shit bird right there, just fucking stirring it with a broken stick, and you're like, man.
And you know, like, let's break this for those of you that are listening. We'll break this down for you so you know exactly what we're talking about. But
imagine,
you know, discretion advised. If you shouldn't listen to this if you're about to go eat breakfast or lunch, because this
does kind of smell like Burger King.
So
yeah.
What we're kind of
So leading into that, just current topics. So is that the most common, or I wouldn't say the most common, is that the most valuable thing to talk about right now? Like, is that the burn pits? Is that like the most talked about thing right now?
Not like, really. I would say the
what would you say
bigger common things for like our generation would be like the PTSD, the TBI, sleep apnea, headaches. When it comes to the burn pits, the harder part is a lot of this stuff is kind of hard. So like say like fibromyalgia, it's hard as hell to get diagnosed. You know, they'll tell you, oh, you just worked out too hard. Oh, well, you weren't sleeping very well last night. Oh, you probably need to do this. But they won't just say, let's test it.
And a lot of the symptoms with fibromyalgia are they're all over the place, and they're very relatable to other conditions.
Absolutely.
I know that because my wife has fibromyalgia, and she just barely got diagnosed like a year ago, but she's been dealing with
years and years of
for years.
What is that? What is fibromyalgia?
It's basically an autoimmune disease that attacks your nervous system.
And so a lot of your joints get inflamed, you know, so a lot of guys like will have like soreness in their knees, their hips, their back, shoulders, elbows. There's a lot of fatigue in it. Things like that where you kind of have like this malaise kind of feeling with the pain. But like it's harder for these guys to like diagnose you. So then, you know, you might be going on the VA for 3-4 years before they even believe that what you're saying is true. So then when you're trying to get that diagnosis within the first year of your ETS,
because there's a lot of labs, there's all kinds of things that need to be done, blood work that in order to figure that out.
So how do you treat that anyways? You just take pills the rest of your life?
Pretty much. I haven't seen anybody that has like a cure or anything for it, because it's really just like your body attacking itself.
You're supposedly like, you know, I know with my wife, the more active that she is, the less extreme the symptoms are. So
it doesn't hurt as much.
It doesn't hurt as much.
And I think stress will totally trigger it really bad.
Stress, the weather, like this whole week, it's been raining like crazy, so that flares it up. It's crazy. Yeah.
So let's I want to take a step back real quick, because this is kind of relatable to what our conversation was when you got my benefits and stuff. Was, you know, you made sure that go see the VA and start documenting all your stuff. So that's I would say like one of the most important things. Do it even before seeing you, right? I mean, it's okay. Just start claim. So that way, it's you're building your case.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So like, it doesn't bother me if you like say the first time you see me, you're not necessarily prepared, because we could always sit down and come up with a game plan and say, okay, what about this or that?
Yeah,
and come up with some idea of what we're going to play with. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, what you're trying to show is 1, you're diagnosed, 2, it's still bugging you, and 3, you get tied to your service in any which way. So if you could hit those 3 points, you're pretty safe for the most part until you run into some kind of ass that says, I don't believe you. But
Now,
for the most part, you should be successful.
what about for the situations where the veteran does not have a paper trail, a BAS record for being
That's
seen?
a great question.
Is he screwed, or is there
No.
different things that he can do?
So it definitely gets harder if there's like no military record for nothing.
Yeah.
But what you can do, even if it's been years since you've been out, is get currently diagnosed, showing that something's bothering you, and then seeing if you could tie it to your service and seeing if a doctor will write that it's more likely than not due to service.
Okay.
And so you usually have better odds with an outside guy because VA doctors are like, nah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And part of the reason some of the VA doctors don't want to do it is because once you're found out that you're the doctor that's willing to write letters, everybody floods that guy.
Yeah.
And then he's screwed,
And then the VA might
might
get
not.
wind of it and be like, all right, deuces, like,
Yeah,
you
or
go
you
work
never
for someone
advance
else.
or something. Yeah. And so there are those like little random things. Sometimes VA doctors simply just don't want to, But I think the outside guys, you usually have better odds because they're not dealing with vets every day, so they don't necessarily understand where it's coming from.
So that's great. If they don't have the service record, at least there's other ways that they can potentially build that up. So go see specialists outside, and ultimately that's what's most important is
a doctor's letter will give you better odds.
And also showing that you've been overseas too. Because I remember me and you had talked about that too. It's just having that sea service deployment ribbon.
It gives you stronger argument of what happened to you. Because like if you're stuck in Nebraska the whole time you're in, then you're going to deal with that outside doctor saying, what the hell did he do? Even though you could have got totally jacked up in Nebraska, like injuries happen in seconds. But he just looks at Nebraska and goes, that's not Afghanistan.
So they're comparing.
Yeah, they try to in their head of like trying to figure out, because you got to assume this guy doesn't know military for nothing. So if you say I was doing this or that and he doesn't have an idea, then it's hard for you to see it.
Right.
But if like say me and you don't know military for shit, but we love Call of Duty, we're like, oh well, airborne infantry, no way, I get that. And so then all of a sudden you got this bullshit thought in your head.
Damn.
Yeah. Like, but the bigger thing I always tell the doctors too is like the VA's never going to call you and say, why in the hell did you write this stupid ass letter? Like, are you an idiot? What? They're too busy to argue with doctors. They'll argue with us all day. But if you have any doctor saying, I think so, you have better odds. And it's really a 51%. Like, is there a 51% chance that this could have happened in service? Is there a 51% chance that this vet is being honest and saying this is due to service? And so if you have that letter, you should do all right. But doctors think they're going to get sued or something.
And is that just any doctor, or is that just doctors that, like QTC or whatever those places that they send you? And
those outside guys ain't there for you. So they ain't going to, most of the time they're not there for you. They're there to say you're full of it or it's not that big of a deal.
Right. And I remember going in there because, I'm 100%. So like, I remember going in there and sitting with that doctor, and he's got like the chair, you're in your chair and they're just like hounding you. Like, and it feels like it's almost like they're against you in a way. I felt that. I felt like they were completely against me.
Well,
you're like, oh, you have an issue with your knee? Okay. So can you move your knee? Okay.
It's like a police department interview.
Is it sore right here, or is it in the back? Like, they're asking every single detail and saying, oh, it's really not that bad though, right? They're asking, like, they're giving you questions to try to like answer for yourself.
To kind of lead you.
Like, no, hell no, asshole. This thing, it hurts. I got these, I was a grunt or whatever.
And it's not that I don't like these doctors, but the thing that trips me out is like, it's supposed to be an unbiased medical opinion, but it is paid. They work for Lockheed Martin and they get paid by the VA. So how is it unbiased? That's the thing that bothers me is like, it doesn't feel very unbiased. And then on the flip side, there's supposed to be a law that says veterans get benefit of doubt. So if I'm telling you and I'm being honest and there's nothing to question my honesty and my truth, why in the hell am I getting denied? And it's because they're not really following the law. So if they're not following the law of an unbiased medical opinion and they're not following the law when it comes to giving the veteran benefit of doubt, then I think they're playing games. And that's when you're like, you know what? Like, you have to accept the fact that this is a game and play the game because it's the only way you're going to be successful. And it's not because vets are scamming or they're trying to take money. It's because the VA is trying to, like, deny everybody. Like how many World War II guys you've seen get denied for hearing loss. And you're like, the shit, dude.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
or they don't have PTSD because they never bitched about it. And you're like, fucking kidding me? I would have been crazy as shit if I was in World War II.
Oh my God.
Dude, and I think these benefits aren't even just for yourself.
Absolutely.
I think it's also for your family.
Yeah.
So if, God forbid, you go off the deep end in 5-6 years, right? You're just having one of those power struggles, and you just need that help, or you lose your job. I've seen it happen to some, I know heart vets, and they lose their job. They're doing good for 4 years, and all of a sudden something happens, something triggers them. They lose their job, they go on their ass, they lose their house, they lose everything. They have nothing to support them, no backup benefits. And then, God forbid, the unthinkable happens, their family's left to shit.
Yep.
Okay. So question for you, Joe. I had someone reach out to me recently. Her ex-husband killed himself, former Marine, and he has 4 kids. So he has a rating. She's trying to get all of his award letter and all that kind of stuff. What does he have to sign up for something to make sure that the kids are taken care of?
No, you would have to show that the reason he killed himself was because of PTSD or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
if he's service-connected PTSD, do you think it?
Yeah, that should be
enough?
A safe bet. Yeah.
Okay.
So
and she would get the benefits.
Yeah, and then she would get the benefits and things like that. But that's a good thing too. So any of you guys that are rated for PTSD, especially your spouses, if they're listening, if you happen to get in a car wreck and die, they're going to say it's not due to service. So the spouse has to say something like, we got in an argument and he drove off wanting to kill himself. If you drowned in the ocean because you wanted to go surfing, it's because you didn't want to come back, And so you got to make sure that there's a way to tie it to your service to make sure your spouse and your family's going to be taken care of.
And also, if you're going into VA, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but if you're hurting, and you're that guy that downplays it. I think we just talked about this a little bit ago, but you gotta be honest, and you gotta be almost overly compensating.
Yeah, you got to tell them your worst day, not the now.
Right. Well, today I'm managing it with painkillers and my medicine, or I'm smoking weed, or whatever it is that you do to find your little groove in trying to live in modern society. You can't go off that easy day. You got to say it's my hardest day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's
absolutely.
what they're going off of. Because it might be your easiest day for the past 6 months in your head, but in reality, they want to know your hardest day.
Because that first, every time you go there, how are you feeling? 1 to 10. And
I think I know who your doctor is.
So, Joe, I got a question for you. We talk about getting your benefits, and let's say you have your benefits now. Okay, you got your benefits. Now you're doing good things in your life. How about keeping your benefits? And is there anything that they do? Do they look at your stuff? Do you make sure that you keep up with the VA? What do you do to make sure you're good?
Is there anything that locks it in after a certain time too?
Yeah. So ultimately, usually if it comes to something like, say, that is somewhat subjective, like headaches, PTSD, mental health, it's hard to say where that guy's at, right? Mm-hmm. So they could say, oh, you're at a 50 today, you're at 70 tomorrow, and, something happens, so now you're 100, but now we think you're better, so you're 30. It's kind of subjective, so that's the harder part. But usually after 5 years of rating you is when they'll send you to an outside doctor to reevaluate you. And so what you want to show there is that the condition's not getting better or that it's chronic. And chronic just means it's not getting better. And then after 10 years, if they have nothing to lean on, there's they haven't found you to be a liar or anything like that, then usually they'll leave you alone after 10 years. If you have high percentages, say you got a shitload of 10s and 20s and now you're 100%, usually they'll give you the permanent and total because any one of those things are going to get worse, Normally you don't see your knees or your back or any of the joints getting better because they're joints, The things that they do try to screw with are cancer issues. That's the weird one. So say you have PTSD and you take medication and you're seeing therapy, they say cool, and they kind of leave you alone. If you have a heart problem and you start taking heart medication or you have surgery, they kind of leave you alone. But the moment you have cancer, they say, oh shit, poor baby, and they'll shoot you straight to 100 when it's active. But the moment you have surgery or they say it's in remission, that means cured. And so say that's the only thing you ever file for is prostate cancer or something like that. You're straight to 100, so you're okay, I'm taken care of, so I don't need to file for anything. then you have surgery and they say, oh, it's in remission. You don't have to trip. They don't look at any residual issues, They just say you don't have prostate cancer anymore. And so they'll drop that 100 to a 10 or a 20. And you're like, that dude lost his job. He has like radiation all through his body. He's wearing diapers. He has erectile dysfunction. And I'm pretty sure depression crept in there at least a little bit, thinking you're going to die.
Yeah.
So based off of that, would you recommend that the veteran would basically bring up every single injury, no matter how big or small?
Oh, absolutely. And so the easiest way to try to keep your stuff is showing that these things are chronic and they're not getting better. But say a younger guy goes in and gets 100% for PTSD and says, all right, cool. And he doesn't go to the VA. When they send him back to get reevaluated, he has no records for shit. So now that outside doctor can write whatever the hell he wants, and he's going to shoot you out of the water. There's no way in hell they're going to allow a 20-year-old to keep that 100%.
So it's important to continue to go to the VA
or your outside doctor, yeah.
Outside doctor,
yeah,
and make sure it's continuously being monitored and
yeah.
Yeah, don't hide for 10 years when you're getting all these letters.
Yeah,
and then just wonder why they take away your money.
Yeah, and you got the money, so I'm out. F you guys.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, that's going to screw you.
It's a job. You got to kind of work for it, right?
Yeah, and when it comes to mental, it's really more about management than cure. So just because you got that 100% rating or just because you think you're doing better, it's never going to really go away, at least nothing that I've seen. And so I think it's really about management, and that means you got to participate in some degree.
See your wizard regularly. Make sure it's at every 3-month mark. You're seeing your wizard. He's documenting it. Things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I do got to say this though: is I went to mental health, and they always shoot me new meds. All they do, that was their way to do it.
Try that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see this Wellbutrin work for you. Let's try this trazodone kind of stuff, and then they just keep throwing it at you. But I do got to say this time, they actually sent me to an outside person.
Nice.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
A little bit
and that makes you feel a little more comfortable, right?
Well, anyone with VA.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And you're not trying to be an ass about it, but yeah, there's a little more okay, I'm a little more comfortable here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got this question. I think this is one of the biggest topics that all vets talk about is, okay, once I have my ratings, I want to work. I want to start doing something other than sitting on my ass at home.
Right.
What is the most what about all the vets that are watching right now or listening, because we're live on Facebook Live? I'm on. How does it work exactly as far as how paranoid should you be or should you not be? Because there's guys out there that are not sleeping at night. They're like, oh my God, I went outside and I drove to 7-Eleven, or hey, I got a part-time job and I made $100.
If you're just straight up 100, you could do whatever the hell you want. If you're under the unemployable, then you want to worry about any type of W-2s or getting, paid for working for somebody. If you're working at a table, cool, man. Ain't nobody gonna hate you for that. But I highly, highly doubt there's people looking at you, because there's millions and millions of vets out there. There's millions of vets that are service connected, and clearly the VA pretends to be underfunded, so I can't imagine them wasting their time looking at a dude that's
just monitoring.
Something. Yeah, looking at a dude that's getting something.
Yeah. They're under resourced.
Driving in an unmarked car, with scope on you.
Yeah, there's that guy. He's disabled,
as you're at the gym,
he looks good.
Trying to lessen your knee injury.
I highly doubt it, but I mean, if that's a job, that'd be one hell of a job, because I don't see how you.
So basically, stop overthinking.
Imagine your one job.
Yeah, don't overthink it.
To hurt vets.
The VA is incredibly simple, and they are not big brothers watching us type deal. They're more focused on their own selves, and especially with all them trying to show how good they are towards vets. So, when you hear oh, we got claims done in 30 days, and you're like, well, how many of those got denied?
Right. Start asking questions, right?
That's
what you start doing as a vet.
And so let them boost themselves and pat themselves on the back. That's all good. But they're not going to be sitting there wondering how come that E4 in Nebraska is 100% and he has 40% for a lower back. They don't give a shit. That's a waste of time. And they would have to the only way they'll mess with you is if your records show like, oh, he had back surgery and now he's doing backflips, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
but how would they know you're doing backflips? Like, are they sitting
like your VA
Facebook
medical records?
Oh, okay.
No, they're looking at your VA medical records. But say you go to Kaiser, then they have no access to that unless you allow it.
I see. So different doctors, different systems, they don't have access to it.
Right, because it's still your privacy.
Now, if you go try to, let's say, apply and be a firefighter, for example, and they're saying, oh, obviously, like, mental illness is kind of, it's a part of your job, just like saying trying to go be a police officer or a correctional or whatever it is you're going to do. That mental state has a big purpose in being with your job. So what about those guys that say, hey, your VA record and all the stuff that you did in the past, if you're 100%, like, you don't have to disclose it to those departments. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to. And the biggest thing that I see when you're talking to vets with mental illness, regardless if it's PTSD or whatever, we usually want to be left alone. Like, I don't see a lot of vets that wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to punch the next dude that walks in front of me. It's usually the guy, like, if me and you are at a bar and some dude says, you never got deployed, fuck you, then he might get his ass whooped. But you just sitting there drinking and some guy's like, go Cowboys, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, that's not us. So usually it's somebody that...
Something that triggers it.
Yeah, that's like picking on you than you picking on the world. So I don't see vets as like the scary thing, like, oh no, he's got PTSD, stay away. I think that's all BS. And when it comes to police officers, you understand it just because, especially here in LA, they have that negative history. And you can imagine if something happened in the news where whether that cop's right or wrong, all you see is LAPD cop with PTSD did this. He's guilty as shit already. And so they don't want that negativity.
I guess what I'm asking is, like, also, like, do you think you should have to feel that you should disclose that information because that was a separate part of your life?
No.
So should they be able to judge you based on, oh, you were in combat and you got shot at and you probably saw people pass away, so that affected you? Okay, definitely. Cool. Well, guess what? We can't hire you because you're rated at a 60% level for mental illness.
Well, yeah, that's going to be their individual. That's going to be their individual right. Like, yeah, that's the organization.
Okay,
so they have every right to do that.
Should you have to disclose that to a private office? Like, should you tell them that information?
They're going to figure it out.
Yeah,
regardless.
I think with the psych eval and everything like that.
Yeah,
so I guess it's more of like you got the guys sitting at home. They're like, man, I can't do anything. My whole life I wanted to be a fireman.
You can still be a fireman. Yeah,
but I'm 100% PTSD.
That's okay. It's just you don't want to show any type of violence, because me and you, like, we could easily just hate ourselves all damn day, better than anybody.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're kicking your dog or like punching your neighbor, And so this dude can still do stuff, and you don't have to be afraid of him. The ones I think you're afraid of are the ones who don't say shit, the ones who think they are better than everybody else. The ones that have some little, like, chip on their shoulder, they're the ones that you can't get to.
I see.
But, like, on the average, I don't think just because you have a mental condition doesn't mean you're scary or bad. It just means we don't click when it comes to basic BS. So, like, when somebody says, you have to do this, and like, shit, I do.
Right.
Yeah. And
but you shouldn't feel obliged to have to share that information because that was something that happened during your military career. And
I don't think you're obliged to, but I think if it is something that affects you, then I think you want to be honest about it. But, like, say, like, if they say, oh, you're 50% disabled, you're like, yeah, dude, I have sleep apnea. Like, you could be severely disabled on the VA's rating scale and not necessarily be severely disabled when it comes to work.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
You really have to be able to show that you can communicate and that you can move past that. I think one of the things that we had covered on a previous episode was regarding law enforcement, how back in the day, a combat vet would be, man, every department would jump all over you. Now their whole role, like talking about LAPD specifically, their role is now more of like community service.
Exactly. I was about to say.
Because of that. So a combat vet is looked at like a liability.
Right.
So it's much harder for that veteran to get hired, unfortunately, but they need to be able to show that they can communicate, that they can handle themselves accordingly when put in a situation. So if they're writing a parking ticket,
you're not going to body slam the person.
Yeah, some dude goes high into the right, calls him an asshole. They're not going to freaking beat the dude's ass. And I think that's what ultimately firefighter, police officer, law enforcement, it's all going to be the same as them being able to show that they can communicate with the general population in a positive manner. Absolutely. And if they can't, well, then maybe they shouldn't work in that.
Yeah, because I mean, I've sent Joe a couple of firefighters and police officers.
Yeah.
So you help them.
Yeah.
So.
And some of them are shy about touching the PTSD thing, and it's understandable, you know? Mm-hmm. But I always let them know, like, well, once you retire, once you get done, that's options there, you know? But yeah, I don't, just because you have a mental issue doesn't necessarily mean that guy can't work or he can't touch guns or any of that.
Because think about it, man. You drive around the town right now, and there's like 1 million people on so many like opioids and
hell yeah, and that scares the shit out of me.
That's pretty damn scary.
Yeah, because at least the vet, like if you get in a fight, regardless how crazy he is, he feels it.
Yeah,
you know, a dude on painkillers, he ain't gonna feel a damn thing.
Absolutely.
Like crazy. And so, like, yeah, but I think like the bigger thing when it comes to vets is we're more honest about who the hell we are, you know, when it comes to like how we feel, and we're more real about people in general. So if someone calls you an asshole, you're like, yep. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
Brad.
And our network's just getting bigger, guys. I mean, the number of vets is growing. I mean, there's a lot of guys getting out, more combat vets than probably Vietnam.
I would have to.
It's just got to be,
you know, and we're still at war. I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff that people just don't see. I mean, you know, these guys are still coming back. They still have the same issues.
Effects,
you know,
the suicide rate.
And I think the only thing that we can do is talk.
And that's what I mean is like the suicide rate is really because we are hard on ourselves. We're not hard on the others.
Yeah.
You know, so like just because some dude has PTSD doesn't mean he's like got to go chase you.
Yeah.
It's more than likely he's got to pick on himself. Yeah. You know.
And they keep it bottled in. They keep it bottled inside. You don't want a big thing when I've always been in really bad places is I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to feel like a burden to someone else.
Dumping all your shit on somebody else's shoulders. Yeah.
And so it's really huge.
So you keep it in and then it freaking explodes.
Yeah, and then something happens like the dishes aren't done. You're like, what the fuck? Like, and no one gets why you're like through the roof.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's why talking about it helps the most. I think that's the number one thing.
Yeah,
talking about it.
Because then you can laugh because like even like right now, like we're all laughing like, yeah, I get that.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And it's not because like anything other than like it's human. Like this is all a human experience. And regardless of how different you think you are, races or nationalities, like if you go through that bullshit, you're going to have similar echoes of whatever the hell happened.
You can't unsee it. You can't forget it. Like it's
just gotta learn to cope with it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's about management. And so you got to realize like if some dude's pissing you off, is he really pissing you off or are you just being shitty? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now I'm like a little congested, right? And my girl was like kind of like she was saying something that kind of just irritated the shit out of me, right? And you know it's because like I'm like congested and I'm like just like leave me the fuck alone. But because she was saying some shit, you're like, dude, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
But you know it's you. So it's like no need to go cuss her out over some bullshit because you're feeling pissy. You know, that's yours.
Which is why I think it's really cool to find that thing that allows you to release that. Like Colt has, you know, works with We Defy and Jiu-Jitsu, and that's great. We do the gym stuff. And, you know, I think it's finding that one thing that you can look forward to that just releases it all.
And I think part of it, especially for the majority of us, it's taking care of others. Regardless of what it is.
Absolutely.
You know, so like even like when you're doing jiu-jitsu, it's more about training others and teaching others proper style and technique than just let me whoop your ass. You know?
Totally. No, I totally agree. Taking care of others is, I think, the number one thing because you served in the military service. Right? We talked about that, you know, on other episodes. But yeah, serving others is key because if you have that sense of giving back, right, you get that satisfying, you know, feeling in your body that, hey, I did something to help somebody else, or I taught somebody else something, you know, because that's your purpose.
That's the biggest thing.
And if you don't want to be here, you know, and you get to that point in your life where you're just like, man, I can't be here anymore in this world. I'm done. I'm checking out. Right. Do it for others. Like stick around, you know,
like
take care of others, try to do something, get yourself out there and put yourself and make yourself vulnerable in some option, like something that you're good at. Right.
Yeah.
So, and that giving back sense should make you want to feel like you have a purpose. And I think that's what we had, because you can't go from being the baddest motherfucker on the planet, being in the military, right? Going to combat, doing all this shit. And then all of a sudden you go from a tempo up here, right?
To a nobody.
To feeling like you're a nobody.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're just so far above the norm with all the discipline and all the things that you've learned. You just got to learn how to tone it down a little bit and expect a little bit less of yourself.
Not be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, dude. That is the hardest thing for, I think, the majority of us. Because, like, it's hard for you to believe that anybody could say no.
Yeah.
You know, like, even in my head right now, it's like, if I was taught how to do heart surgery, I could totally do it. You know, like, I don't.
That's
like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I just feel like you're invincible.
Yeah, like, it's like, you're not a genius, dude. If all you do is work on hearts, then that's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, work on a toe, then, smart ass. And so, like,
Awesome.
I really think, like, yeah, it's really hard to believe that there's any type of limitation on you.
Yeah.
You know? I think the only limitation I've seen for my life is, like, baseball or football, where you look at those sons of bitches, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't do
You know?
that.
I can't be LeBron.
Too short.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just look at those dudes, like, I was like,
Yeah.
nah, I
Yeah.
don't think that was going to work out.
No, totally.
But, like, other than that, like, yeah, there's nothing in my head that says I can't. Like, even if that I'm trying to, like, be real right now, and, like, what can't you do? And you're like, like, just throw it at me. I'll go for it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, that's badass.
So compiling everything together today, just everything that we've talked about, you know, I think you touched on a lot of good subjects. I think that the number one thing is, you know, there's benefits out there for you.
And
Go
it's
get
about-
them.
Yeah, take care of each other. It's really not about us. It's really about taking care of each other and taking care of the future. And so whether you think you deserve it or not, that's all good. But realize the higher you go, the better odds we have. And so it's about taking care of each other and taking care of the future. So your kids, your grandkids won't say, I got Agent Orange, I got depleted uranium, or any of that BS.
That's a good note. I didn't
You
even
know,
think about
definitely.
it like that. Because you all got a family.
How does someone find you? Like, and I know your schedule is kind of crazy. And
What's the best way of getting a hold of you?
You're only available certain days. Is
Yeah,
there
so-
online you can look?
You could always email me, josephjsapien@gmail. I always have my schedule out there. Usually by the end of the month, I'll put out my new schedule. The pain in the ass to get to me is, my list does feel kind of crazy, and I would have never guessed that in a million years, really. It shocks me
Yeah.
all the time. Like, it really
3 a.m.
does.
What time do you guys
Yeah.
get there in the morning?
Some dudes get there literally 3, 4 in the morning, and, like, the first, like, say 3 or 4 guys, like, have some weird kind of, like, bragging right to say I'm number one. I don't know why.
I remember seeing one dude he actually ended up, he didn't go to sleep, and it was like 1 a.m. He went over, put his name on the list, and then left, and then got back. And that was the first one that got there.
And you'll see there's, like, this weird bragging right
Yeah.
of saying I'm number one today.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know where the hell that came from.
Or when you get there at 5 and you think, man, I'm going to be number one. You're like,
Well,
number 6.
everyone I
Yeah.
tell to go see this guy, I say 4:30. So building 22, right?
Yeah.
4:30.
Yeah.
And then
And
So your schedule is only posted on.
on the door, if you email me, I'll send it to you, you know? Like,
Cool.
and then if you go to Sepulveda, it's sitting out there. And then I think the Santa Clarita Center has it. And I think Newhall.
That's on like
Better.
Thursdays, right?
Uh,
Santa Clarita.
I used to. They gave it to the new guy now.
Okay.
So
For all you guys in different parts of the country, this guy's in California.
yeah, I'm
So,
kicking it in Los
If
Angeles.
you do travel here, though, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
So
And,
FYI.
and worst case scenario, if you can't get to me, if it's a pain in the ass, you could always email me, and I'll always give you my opinion on what I think I would do or how I would word it. You know, that's never a problem. It's really not about me. It's about trying to take care of the others and trying to push this up, because the worst thing I could see is if I'm a service officer for 30 years and you hear some bullshit like, LA only has 30% of their veteran service connected. That means I did nothing. You know, I've definitely helped out a lot of vets, but there's like over 300,000 vets here. And in my head, if I'm not getting to them, then that means I didn't do shit. So if I owe you $300,000 and I've only got you 30,000, doesn't sound like I've been trying. And that's what's in my head. And so the biggest idea is by the time I retire from this shit, I want to see something more like 50-80% of guys service
Freaking
connected.
badass.
So then it becomes a snowball that feeds itself.
Hell yeah.
Right.
You
Let's
know.
do it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the bigger thing. But to sit here and have a job for 30 years and nothing really changed in the overall, that's a waste of time.
We're gonna feed you guys. So,
and before I met this guy, I had gone to 2 other service officers. I think one or two of them.
Oh, me
I got
too.
0.
Yeah,
0.
They didn't even fill out the paperwork correctly.
Yeah,
like they forgot to sign something, and it was like 4 months later. And I said, "Hey, what's going on? Oh, you missed a signature. Start over again." It's like
I don't get that. Like it's mind blowing.
Yeah,
you know, because it's like
these people's lives.
Yeah, like literally, like
you know.
I mean, it could be stressful at times, but at the end of the day, you get the bullshit with vets and left paper. Yeah. Like, the hell you bitching
easy
about,
job.
dude? Yeah, like
it's an easy job.
Yeah, all you got to do is be responsible and submit that shit.
Yeah.
Like other than that, I get to hang out with like legit heroes, legit like real people that are part of your community that you never knew. You know, you wouldn't know that old guy was a World War II vet that killed a shitload of people and will do it with a smile. Yeah. You know, like, man, there is like incredible people here and they're your neighbors, you know? Mm-hmm. And you would never know that unless you sit there and bullshit with them.
And a lot of times they don't know that they even can get benefits still. They think,
yeah.
Oh, I was back in World War II. And,
yeah.
You know, I'm like, no. Like, well, I mean, unfortunately, that era is kind of
slowly
seen as in.
Almost. Like, in the next 10 years, it'd be hard to find them.
Sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a lot of Vietnam vets that, you know, were in some serious combat and they're, I got 10%. I didn't think I could get anything else.
Yeah, and you can't help but say, like, dude, you did more than I did, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's where I come from is like, I was in the Army. I was artillery. I only did 2 years. So when I look at everybody else, I'm like, you did more than I did. How in the hell am I over you? And I get that disability is different and all that, but practically anybody that walks in my office, I'm like, man, you're more of a vet than I am, you know? So it's like, how can I help that guy who legitimately did more than I did get him something legit?
Which is why you're in business.
You know, because those medals are nice, but they don't feed you. You know, me and you will have respect for it and say, damn, bro, you got that? That's cool.
Definitely.
But anytime you go to Home Depot, that doesn't give you a raise. You know?
Totally, man. Yeah. And just pointing out all those things, you know, I think helps us all. I mean, I personally myself, just from this conversation, I think I learned a ton more than I did, like coming in and out of it.
We got a lot in the works too. This is something that we're definitely going to dive into. We're going to be working with Joe on training and being able to provide as much value to you guys to be able to help you with anything that is needed, because that's one thing that we want to ensure that we take care of our brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
We got huge things in the works to work with Joe on developing case studies in the future to really just give back and help.
Yeah, and hopefully hopefully my job gets erased, you know, because if there is no service officer, then that means we're getting what we deserve.
Damn straight, you know? Man.
Oh, yeah.
Badass.
Right.
So that's the goal.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
It
really means a lot to us.
We're going to go treat you to some chow now.
Nah.
She's got a wedding to go to, huh?
Yeah, I got a wedding, and I got to go drop off claims, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I got them.
That's a little more important.
So, well, we're going to close out here, guys, on the podcast and on our live feed today. So if you guys got this live feed, make sure you guys like and share it as far as the podcast. This is something we do for free, guys, so we don't make any money on this. Share it. Get it to the right people that you're worried about, people that you think need the information. And that's it. Until next time, stay up.
Thank you.
Veterans Battalion out.
Out.
Thanks for listening and serving. Please take the time to leave a review on iTunes to get this podcast heard. Veterans Battalion.